Hello, my soccer universe. My name is Roland and this is Football Talk. We talk about what we learned from the European midweek. A chaotic midweek, I have to say. Overall, tons of drama, especially in Champions League, a little bit in the Europa League, not as much though, I have to say. And yeah, I'm still trying to make a little bit sense of it. That's one reason why it is now on Saturday that I'm shooting this video. The other one is, of course, that Friday evening we had the big start to the Austrian season in this new year with a cup round, and Lask played a home game in a derby against Blau-Weiß and managed to win 3-2 after being 2-0 down already in the first half. So that was pretty much exciting. Yeah, my voice took a hit a little bit, and that allowed me to reflect even a little bit more. My main takeaway, and I have been at first very, sympathetic to this new league phase. It is something new, we gotta see it, and I have to say, well, last year it was kind of, yeah, it's alright. This year I found it rather flat, the whole thing, because you had the first few match days, you didn't really know what's going on, and then you had this information overload on the last match day. 18 matches at once, that's just too much happening, too much changing left and right, and most crucially, at least the way that Sky did it here in Austria and Germany, it is just not well communicated. What do these goals now actually mean? Yes, the commentator says it, but give me at least a graphic to tell me, okay, Bode now took the lead in Madrid. Does this mean they're through? How are their chances now going on? I mean, I'm not even expecting chances, but so many permutations in and out. It was even worse in the Europa League, because when Salzburg, and we will have to mention their actually pretty good performance at Villa, at one point they had a lead. They were in 24th spot, but that lasted only for a couple of minutes, and that was so purely communicated to say what is needed at Salzburg, which would have been a miracle that they move on. But what is needed that they move on? I mean, as an Austrian, I don't like Salzburg all that much, but it's good for the coefficient. So always support your teams from your league, even if you root actively against them during the league. So yeah, that was rather odd, and to me the league format just doesn't cut it. Yes, we had the super drama in Lisbon, and that's why I'm wearing Benfica, and we will definitely have to talk about that match a whole lot. But does this justify 7 weeks of draws and then a last match day that is disorienting at best? The one thing that I can definitely say, I'm looking forward to the knockouts, because now we all know what's happening. And it's also a little bit of symptom of the times. It's too much football. It is just too much football. And it's not going to get better during the World Cup. At least there, we have it at least in 12 groups of 4 to kind of see the stakes that are going on. But what people do not realize is that, if you have that many teams in there, and I'm someone who follows and calculates and really tries to get the stakes in this league phase, it's just too much. I mean, yeah, I can see maybe if you have this result, you could go in there. You see the calculations that I published a week ago. But it was still so murky, and then even trying to find yourself through which are the matches that you should be watching. And then I have to sit in front of TV having the list of matches. These are the matches that matter. It just doesn't do it. Make it slimmer, make it smaller. A reform is needed already. That's at least what I'm saying. But maybe it's very good for the Instagram platforms and so on, because it is bang, 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 and I guess young people love that stuff is happening at such a high rate. I want to start this quick recap. We also have to draw in, we have to talk about that too, because as I said, it now starts to make sense. But we have to start with the madness in Lisbon. I mean, let's just frame it. And it is actually so poetic, because Sporting Lisbon had already taken the lead and was confirmed winners at Athletic Club de Bilbao. Which means actually the Bilbao, who had a chance and actually had the lead in the game, they could have moved on. But that meant that at that point, Real Madrid, who were starting in third position ahead of this match day, they were 3-2 down at Benfica. And, only Mbappé kept it close. Benfica really deserved their 3-2 lead. However, that meant that at this point, thanks to Sporting, Real Madrid are out, but Benfica crucially also have a little chance there. And it was both were one goal away and one position away from a better position. And this actually became then crystal clear because all matches had finished. However, the Benfica match was just 5 minutes delayed because there was a lengthy injury time in the first half. And so everything was distilled into these 5 minutes. If we hadn't had that delay, which was of course an advantage for Benfica, which we will talk about in a second, if it didn't have that delay, the drama wouldn't have been that great. But it was pretty clear. If Real Madrid score a goal, they go back into the top 8. If Benfica score a goal, they are currently in 25th, they leapfrog OM. An OM team that was absolutely ousted by Club Brugge, 3-0. And they are through to the knockout stage, which was sensational because remember, after 4 match days, they were just in bottom, among the bottom 2 teams. You know, this was the time when Ajax and Benfica were bottom. Now that I mentioned Ajax, you know, I'm throwing another one in. Ajax lost 2-1 at home to Olympiacos, which meant that Olympiacos were through and Ajax didn't complete the miracle. And so the crazy thing is that it seemed like Benfica were just wasting time. It was Real Madrid who were moving forward to actually get that goal. And, you know, you would expect that Real Madrid should be a better team, even though they have been anything but great. They created chances. However, they also had Asensio sent off with a second yellow card. Asensio, absolutely, I mean, the first yellow card was absolutely stupid. But then there's this cross in, and this is a scene that just is seared into my mind even more than what happened afterwards. Trubin, they need the goal. Trubin gets the ball and lies on it, wasting time like we want to get that result over the line. And then they're shot in the director's box with João Pinto and especially Rui Costa sitting there and being absolutely mad. What is this guy doing? We need a goal. And then the entirety of the stadium also saying, yes, we need this one goal. Please move forward. And then suddenly it got also to Mourinho. Yes, we need to push. We need one more goal to survive. And Mourinho made all defensive substitutions. I mean, it is crazy. If they wouldn't have this 5-minute delay, Benfica would not have attacked. Which adds to the madness of this entire league phase. I mean, it was great drama. And it was great drama because you could focus on that one game. But it doesn't speak for the format. And, you know, this time and age, yes, I don't blame Mourinho, should not know this. But, you know, there should be a staff member being aware what is needed at this time. That Mourinho doesn't make these defensive substitutions. Needless to say. Then Rodrigo sent off with a second yellow card, I guess, for mouthing off. So that created a whole lot of drama. And that extended then the 5 minutes up to 7 minutes. And then Bellingham commits seemingly a foul. It was not a foul. It was then a great cross in. And who is there to connect with that one against a 9-man Real Madrid? It is Trubin, who put it into the net and sends Benfica through. And Real Madrid only in 9th place. Major disaster, I would say. Maybe not major disaster. And then, you know, it was usually I turn off and go to bed after this, but you know, when something that emotional happens, you need to let this settle a little bit. And while it was settling for me, I realized, man, they may meet again in the playoff round. And that's exactly what we got. I'm already preempting. That's exactly what we got. And this time it counts for more. So the next time those two will step on the field in the Champions League, now that they've qualified for the playoff round, or you know, fell out of the round of 16 in case of Real Madrid, the next time they will meet again, and again in Lisbon, and then a week later in Madrid. Is it time for another Mourinho miracle? I doubt it, but you know, absolute crazy stuff that was happening there. That was the highlight. I mean, there were other interesting results. As I said, we had Sporting moving on into the top 8 at the expense of Real Madrid. So the 2 Portuguese teams beating Spanish teams. And that was a theme. We'll get to that a little bit. Another Madrid team also managed to lose in a game where only Norwegian scored. Bodø Glimt went to Atletico Madrid after beating City. And the Norwegian season is not even under the way. They go to Atletico, are 1-0 down through a Sorloth goal, manage to turn around, and Hög gets the winner and sends Bodø Glimt through to the knockout stage with 2 wins. And those 2 wins came this year. also crazy. Another Spanish teams, I mean, Villarreal losing 3-0. Villarreal absolute shambles, but we shouldn't mention too much. Another crazy stuff was Inter had a 2-0 lead at Dortmund, and what a beautiful goal by Di Marco. I think Inter were overall the better team from what I could tell. But they were celebrating after the 2-0. There was, I think, was Fratesi jumping onto the pile. Yes, we are top 8. Yes, we are top 8. And then the goals coming and they're not top 8 anymore. Is this what we want? I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. I also want to mention Barcelona because they were 1-0 down against Copenhagen. Yes, again, the high line you get behind. But I knew that they will turn around, even though they were down 1-0 at the half. And yes, this would have completed the Spanish disaster. But yeah, Barcelona get the win. The only Spanish win. And they celebrate them double because not only are they in the top 8 again, but also Real Madrid are not again, because last year Real Madrid were also not in there. Talk already about OM. I also have to mention PSG against Newcastle. I mean, a draw that helps nobody. Dembele has a penalty saved. Did not look good. I mean, why is Vitinha not taking it? He has been doing it last season. Vitinha actually gets a go-ahead goal. For the first 20-25 minutes, it was all PSG, but then Newcastle got back in, get the equalizer. And yeah, we're probably even then the better team. So PSG also not in the top 8, as are Newcastle. If either one would have won, they would have been in the top 8. So both together fall out. We had PSV actually almost getting the 24th spot, but they then ended up losing against Bayern. At one point, it seemed like a 1-1 is enough. Crazy jersey match for Bayern, but also didn't help. And Napoli, another disappointment. Yes, they turned it around against Chelsea in the first half, and what a beautiful goal by Vergara, a local boy. But then João Pedro turns around for Chelsea in the second half. Nice adjustments made by Rosinho, the new coach. And Atalanta, we thought they might be top 8. Nothing like that. So yeah, with all that, let's digest this once more. We have the 4 or the 8 teams that, I mean, Arsenal, Bayern are in top. Then we have Liverpool, Spurs. Those are the top 4. Then the next 4. And again, very Premier League heavy. We have Chelsea, Sporting, City, and of course Barcelona then finishing in 5th. And you see only Bayern, Barcelona, and Sporting. Sporting is the surprise here, are breaking the Premier League phalanx. I mean, Spurs in 4th. It doesn't make any sense. And then we have the teams that just missed out. I mean, Inter could not have done much more. City did get their win. Sporting did get a win that they didn't expect. So yeah, Inter didn't really have a chance. As soon as Sporting made the goal, Inter didn't have the chance. And so Real Madrid and Inter are just outside but seeded as a PSG. Newcastle, Juve, Atletico, Atalanta, Leverkusen were the seeded teams then. And then we had the unseeded teams in the draw in Dortmund, Olympiacos, Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Monaco, Karabakh, and Glimt and Benfica. And then the draw happened, and what did we get? We got, as I said, Benfica facing Real Madrid again. We got Glimt against Inter, which is something that I want to say. I didn't want to say Inter against Benfica because I think Inter would win that one easily. I think they will win that one against Glimt also easily. But I gotta say, at least they have to go to the polar circle, and that might be a little bit tricky. PSG face Monaco. I'm not sure how happy PSG are about that because Karabakh potentially would have been an easy opponent, but at least they know Monaco very well. And last year, PSG did actually face French opposition, and that started their run. They're still huge favorites, so Newcastle against Karabakh, even bigger favorites. Then I think the next few are really interesting ones. Juve against Galatasaray. That's Spalletti against Osimhen. Just have that in mind. I mean, they meet from now Napoli, and the last time that those two met, there were also some shenanigans in there. So definitely a really interesting tie. Atletico against Club Brugge. Put a little bit of upset alert there because Atletico do not do well. And then draw that pits two really, really bad opponents against each other. And yes, we do not get a German duel. I actually would have loved a German duel there. But Atalanta against Dortmund. Both teams have not been doing well in the Champions League in the last 2 rounds. Whereas Leverkusen against Olympiacos seems like, yeah, the Leverkusen should win it. No, they just a week and a half ago lost to Olympiacos. A little bit unlucky. But definitely interesting stuff. I think those are actually quite even as well. And if we look at the overall bracket, it also makes it interesting because we could get some real interesting stuff. Now, this you see, I have the matches that are already seeded, and then you see below it against whom they might play then in the round of 16. So Dortmund against Atalanta, against Arsenal, Bayern. We could get Bayern Dortmund in there as well, and Olympiacos Leverkusen. Yes, we could also get Bayern against Leverkusen. It's very likely that Bayern Munich will play a league opponent. Arsenal, whoever they will play, I think they should be considered the favorite. But then we already have, I mean, there is Real Madrid below. So for Arsenal, Bayern, one of those will play Real Madrid in the quarters, should they get ahead of Benfica. And should Benfica advance, there's a good chance they play against Sporting. However, there's also City in there, and City, yeah, that's difficult. So Glimt, Inter, City, Sporting will be interesting. I mean, we could get City and Arsenal already on crash course. This will all be decided by the draw after the round 16. So quite some high stakes, I would say, because arguably the two best teams left in the competition could meet very, very early. If we look at the bottom half, we have Monaco against PSG playing against Barcelona or Chelsea. Same is true for Karabakh and Newcastle. Yes, I guess you wouldn't want to have Newcastle against Chelsea. But, the more Premier League teams get eliminated along the way, maybe this makes it better. Because I think the worst thing would be if we have a semi-final full of Premier League teams. But yeah, PSG will face a stiff task. And it would be great if PSG could play Barcelona again. I actually would be up for seeing that, because I think that will be fireworks for sure. And then I have to say, on the bottom, I mean, Gala, Juve against Liverpool, Spurs. Honestly, I wouldn't want to see Juve against Liverpool again because of history and it's on the teams not getting along. I think Liverpool better against Athletic and Club Brugge. Although, Athletic and Liverpool didn't like that one. If we get, I actually don't think that many Italian teams will advance given their recent record. But if you would get Juve against Spurs, oh my, you know what. The matches are actually now played on the 17th of February, and we start with Galatasaray Juve as the early kickoff. So quite some fun. And we get already on Tuesday the Benfica Real Madrid rematch. I think they wanted to stretch this one, that this is the first and the last one, because it's the obvious one to choose from. Move over to the Europa League. As I said, no Austrian miracle in the Europa League. At one point, Salzburg played really well at Villa and had a 2-0 lead right after the half. And then there was a short period. And yes, Salzburg were... it seemed to me that Salzburg went 24th, but then Ludogorets had already scored against Nice. So that meant Salzburg are out. But then there was a short period where I also thought that Brann, if they get now the draw... in Graz, they're ahead of Salzburg, so maybe better that Brann loses against Sturm. And then Sturm took the lead, but at that point Salzburg were down to 2-2. But it would have been also in a way poetic if Sturm Graz could help Salzburg advance. Alas, it was not really meant to be. And it was only for a brief period of time that Salzburg would have moved on. Again, I personally would not have disliked that, I have to say that. Other matches, Betis actually finished in the top 8 thanks to a win against Feyenoord. Feyenoord needed at least points to get through. They're out. Out are also Utrecht, but that was all clear. Celtic moving on with a rather good 4-2 win. Cervena Svesda against Celta Vigo was also one of those. If you win, you're likely in the top 8, and then Celta take the lead. They think they're in the top 8, and then immediately they concede the equalizer. All very, very late, so a little bit late drama. However, Arnautovic already had scored 2 really nice goals that were both fractional offsides and therefore taken off. Porto actually earned their top 8 spot with a 3-1 over Rangers. We had Genk making it to playoffs with thanks to a 2-1 over Malmö. They turned around, so this was also a result that I think didn't go really Salzburg's way. Lille then move into the playoffs as well. 1-0 over Freiburg with a late winner by Olivier Giroud. Penalty spot, we said already, Ludogorets. PAOK actually had the lead and had it at 2-2, I think, against Lyon. Lyon 4-2. They win the group phase. Villa are in second place. Bologna ease through with a 3-0 against Tel Aviv. Forest, a 4-0 over Ferencváros. Midtjylland 2-0 over Dinamo Zagreb are in the top 8. That's a pretty strong performance. Roma actually made it really hard for themselves. Mancini was sent off early on for Doxo. Then Panathinaikos take the lead, but Pizzilli gets the equalizer and salvages the top 8 for Roma at the expense of Stuttgart. Sturms 1-0 over Brandin Mencha, and Stuttgart won it against Young Boys late 3-2. They had an early 2-0 lead. Young Boys needed at least a point, better a win, and it was then 2-2. Both of them were going for it, but it's Stuttgart who go through. Unfortunately, Young Boys are out. And therefore, the top 8 were then OL and Villa are the seeded teams. Midtjylland and Betis in the second and third. Porto, Braga, the two Portuguese sides. Portuguese sides are really doing well in 5 and 6, and Freiburg and Roma in 7 and 8. And then we had actually for the draw, the seeded teams were Genk and Bologna, seeding relatively just missing out as Stuttgart and Ferencváros, Forest and Pilsen, Cerveza Vestal and Celta. And below PAOK, unseeded as was Lille, Fenerbahce, Panathinaikos, Celtic, Ludogorets, Dinamo Zagreb and Bran. And then we get the following matchups, and I'm gonna go relatively quickly through them. I think the first matches are Genk against Dinamo. I could see rather tight, as I do see Bologna against Bran. Bologna not doing as well, and Bran, probably what doesn't help them is that they are not playing in the Norwegian league yet. They didn't show as much guile, if you want to say, as Glimt, for instance. Then Hungarians against Bulgarian champions, and I think they met already in champions qualifying. Ferencváros and Ludogorets. I'm actually surprised that Ludogorets are at least favored by my model in that one. Stuttgart against Celtic. Stuttgart are a really good team at the moment. I don't know how they lost against Roma, but they are a really good team. So I would favor them. Pilsen against Panathinaikos. You would favor Pana here. Nottingham Forest should be favored over Fenerbahce. Celta PAOK. Celta have been good, but PAOK also. I think that's an interesting one. And then Red Star Belgrade against Lille. What a matchup that one is. Should be favored. And then let's again look at the bracket overall. And yeah, PAOK, Celta, Lille, Red Star, one of those will play Lyon and Villa, so quite interesting already. I always have to see again the Premier League teams. They might not meet before the semi-finals thanks to the seeding, and if it goes, we might get again a Premier League final, which seems likely, but it will also see that on the next time Freiburg and Roma waiting for the winner of Zagreb and Genk, or Bran and Bologna, so we could get an Italian duel there as well, but then you have to face either Villa or Lyon, and Roma will want to avoid Villa. I think against Lyon, Roma could do something. I'm still not sure what Roma is capable of doing. Then, Portuguese opponents for Ludogorets or Ferencváros or Celtic and Stuttgart. And I would actually, in a way, favor even the Portuguese opponents. I mean, Stuttgart and Braga, I would probably give it to Stuttgart at the moment. And then on the bottom, Midtjylland and Betis are waiting, potentially the Fenerbahce or Forest or Panathinaikos and Pilsen. Probably you don't want to play against Forest, but Betis against Forest, we had that at the very beginning of the season as well, and that was a pretty good tie, but maybe not one that I want to see already in the round of 16. I want to finish that one in a way with winners and losers. I mean, let's start with losers. For me, loser is the format. Finally, we get now into the playoffs. A loser is definitely La Liga in this match day. I mean, yes, Barcelona and Betis salvaged a really bad match day for Spanish teams. A loser also has to be Napoli. As an Italian champion, finishing so low behind Karabakh and Glimt is not fit. And yes, Conte might cite the excuse that there were so many injuries. You are Napoli. You are Napoli. You cannot lose 6-2 as PSV. You actually beat Sporting, but this was lucky. There were so many performances by Napoli in there. You cannot manage a 1-1 against Copenhagen when you're a man more. Just these are the points that Napoli might have made to go through. absolute disappointment is Napoli. So those are really three big losers there. For me, winners are, what works in the format is that we have some surprise teams that made it into the knockout stages. I'm looking at the two Norwegian teams, and Norway is now rising in the standings, but also that we have Karabakh, for instance, and this is a clear winner, even though Karabakh lost 6-0 at Liverpool. So you definitely have to say this was a positive sign. Big winner is the Premier League. Premier League teams kept winning. Did one Premier League team not win? No, they all won. It is crazy how dominant the Premier League is. And this is something where UEFA should start thinking in a way, can we do more reform? We have the Premier League and we don't want to take away of the might of the Premier League, but how can we support other leagues to get bigger? Can we do something with there? I've been thinking about some stuff. Maybe I'll brainstorm in a future episode for that. But Premier League, definitely big winner. The small teams are big winners. And I think now that the knockout stage is around, we are also big winners. Because now it really starts. The whole Champions League, Europa League, in a way, if you would skip the league phase and then wait for a knockout stage, I think that's fine. If you don't like the league phase like maybe I have to say, let's start it in February. And I think that's where I want to end this episode. Any case, let me know your thoughts. How did you follow the whole thing? Were you always on top of things? That's my main question. How much did you enjoy what was going on? As I said, I like it a little bit more defined, and maybe some reform needs to take place again, or some adaptation of the whole thing. The one thing, though, I can definitely say is I'm looking forward to the knockout stage. I think that the Europa League sets up nicely. The Champions League also sets up quite nicely. So, all the more fun. Any case, if you enjoyed this episode in video or audio, give a thumbs up. If you did so, leave a comment below. Give me a subscription. That would really help out this channel. And I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye.